विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna to all of you.
Hare Krishna.
Welcome all of you to our today's Bhagavad Gita reading session. So we were discussing chapter 1. Yesterday we have recited the first verse, and before that we had gone through a quick overview of chapter 1, what all we are going to read in chapter 1, and before that a short introduction about Bhagavad Gita. So let us read the first verse. We will read the purport, meanings. Yeah. Okay. The first goes like this. Dhritarashtra uvacha dharma khetre kurukshetre samaveta yutsavah mamakah pandavaschaiva kim akurvat sanjaya. Synonyms. Dhritarashtra uvacha. King Dhritarashtra said, Dharma Kshetre, in the place of pilgrimage, Kurukshetre, in the place named Kurukshetra, Samavetaha, assembled, Yutsavaha, desiring to fight, Mamakaha, my party or sons, Pandavaha, the sons of Pandu, Cha, and Eva, certainly, Kim, what, Akurbata, did they do, Sanjaya, O Sanjaya. Translation. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? Yes, yesterday we had seen this Anvaya. Dhritarashtra is inquiring, Sanjaya, O Sanjaya, Kim Mamakaha Pandavaschaiva Akurbat, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do? Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre, at Kurukshetra, the place of Dharma. Samaveta, having gathered there, Yutsava, with the desire to fight. So, here you see, Dhritarashtra is inquiring from Sanjaya, O Sanjaya, both my sons and the sons of Pandu are gathered in the place of Kurukshetra, which is a Dharma Kshetra, with a desire to fight. But then, why he is asking again? What did they do? They have assembled here with a desire to fight. What will they do? They will fight. Isn't it a very obvious thing? So, why Dhritarashtra is asking like this? It seems very redundant and not so much valuable inquiry. No, it's not certainly a invaluable inquiry. It's a very, it's not a redundant inquiry. There are deeper meaning to it. We will see today what is the deeper inquiry to it. But before that, here you see the Bhagavad Gita is starting with Dhritarashtra Uvacha. It's not starting with Krishna Uvacha or Bhagavan Uvacha, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. This is the speciality of Bhagavad Gita. Many of the scriptures outside of Vedic umbrella, mostly they start with front-loaded divinity. They start with describing the opulences, grandeur, and majesty of the divine person. The speciality of Bhagavad Gita is that it starts with a human condition. It starts with a human condition, and divinity is not speaking until chapter 7 about his opulences, his majesty, his grandeur. In between, some glimpse has been given. One verse in chapter 2, 2.61, Tani Sarvani Sayamya Sanyasya Adhatma Chetasa. In 3.30 also, Mayi Sarvani Karmani Sanyasya Adhatma Chetasa. In 2.61, Mayi Sarvani Karmani. 3.3 is Mayi Sarvani Karmani. Okay, we'll see in greater detail later. And 3.9, Yagyarthat Karmananyatra Lokayam Karmavandana. So, but Arjuna could not comprehend it fully. Until then, in chapter 4, he is asking through Krishna, like we had seen in the introduction section, Krishna tells that I have given this knowledge to sun god, and then Manu, then Ikshvaku, like that it has come in a disciplic succession. Then Arjuna is asking in 4.4, what is asking? He is asking, aparang bhavato janma parajanma vivaswatah katham yatat bijaniyam tvam adau praktavaniti. Arjuna sees Krishna as a contemporary to him. Oh Krishna, you are almost of same age like me. How come you spoke to sun god? Your birth and my birth are almost at the same time. Then Krishna speaks. Then Krishna takes a detour and introduce this concept in chapter 4. But then he described in great detail, beginning from chapter 7 and 6 chapters. He's describing from 7 to 12, and in middle, in 11, he is showing his Virata form, Vishwarupa. Okay, so but Bhagavad Gita, that's what I was talking, that it starts with human condition, like you and me, the problems we are dealing with. Especially the chapter 1 will discuss about 3 personality, where we will see that there are 3 blind persons. One blind person is Dhritarashtra. He is physically blinded. It's very obvious. He cannot see physically. And that's the reason he was away from the kingdom. Away means he legitimately, he should inherit the kingdom, he should be the king, but because of his inability, physical disability, he was not the king. Rather, Pandu, his younger brother, became the king. But he was very attached to the kingdom. He was very, he was looking fulfillment in acquiring that throne. He was seeing his fulfillment to be a king. And another blind person is Duryodhan. Duryodhan is prejudicially blind. Prejudicially blind. He was blind by the greed of kingdom as well as envy towards Pandava. And he was blinded to that degree that he cannot see any good in Pandavas. He cannot see any good in Krishna also, who is the Supreme Lord. When Krishna came as a peace messenger, and that proposal was quite accommodative. Just Duryodhan, if you can give 5 villages out of your many villages you have in the kingdom, then Pandava can settle down. No problem. We can avoid war. But he was so blinded with the greed of kingdom and envy towards Pandava, he doesn't want to give a pinch of land also to Pandava. And third blind person is Arjuna. But Arjuna's blindness is pretty different from other two. He was circumstantially blind. He is blinded. He is blind to his responsibility. He is a Kshatriya. Being the martial guardian of the society, he has to protect the society. He has to protect the society from this inimical king. So for him, his duty is to fight against the evil. But here, the evil persons happen to be his relatives. So because of this material compassion, he is blinded to his responsibility. And he became overwhelmed. Tang tatha krupaya vishnam asru purna kulekshanam visidantam idam vakyam uvacha madhusudana. Asru purna kulekshanam. His eyes became full with tears. And his heart is full with weakness by the compassion towards his relatives. How I am going to fight this war? So the eye is full with tears means he is not able to figure it out. He is not able to see. He is blinded to his responsibility. And let us see what and all these three. Of course, Arjuna's blindness is cured by the message of Bhagavad Gita, while other two not. Why? Because they are not receptive towards the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So actually Bhagavad Gita can solve all the three blindness. Okay, Arjuna's case we have seen, but other two cases also is possible, like Dhritarashtra. If someone will accept the present condition, or if someone accept his own particular position or situation, this thing in my life is not attainable, so I should not seek fulfillment there, rather I should seek my fulfillment which I have or which I can attain or which is possible for me. That's it. And in case of Duryodhan, we should be away from all these vices, like too much of excessive greed or so much of envy or hatred towards somebody. And it's very natural. You see, if somebody is very hatred to one person, he cannot really see any good quality in them, and that will inspire him to plot lot of bad things about other person. Eventually means one bad thing will lead to another bad thing, will lead to another bad thing. That's how it will fully detriment that person. So if someone will be open to the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, then we can really cure our blindness, no matter whether it is physical or prejudicial or circumstantial. And you see here how this verse is. Dharma Kshetre, Kuru Kshetre. Dharma Kshetre means where dharma is being cultivated, the place where it's known for dharma. But again, at the same place, this is a war field, Kurukshetra. Okay. And you see, Samaveta means gathering. Gathering generally, gathering in a sense, it's always to celebrate good things. We come together to exchange good things. But then here you see, it's opposite, Utsava. They have gathered, opposite armies are gathered to fight. And you see, Mamakaha, Mamakaha, so Dhritarashtra here is addressing his sons as Mamaka and his brother's sons as Pandava. Although they all belong to Kuru dynasty, they all are Kauravas, but he is leveling his sons only Kauravas and rest his father's sons are Pandavas. Oh, you are not belonging to Kaurava dynasty. This Bhagavad Gita begins with the human condition and slowly and steadily elevating our consciousness, through the message of Bhagavad Gita. And in the entire chapter 1, Krishna has not spoken a single verse. He was hearing to his friend Arjuna, and he was witnessing the kind of emotion he was going through. That we will discuss in later section. So let us go to the verse purport. Bhagavad Gita is the widely read theistic science summarized in the Gita Mahatmya. Gita su Gita kartabhya kim manne shastra vistare, we had seen while discussing the introduction section. Now, it is a widely read theistic science. Theistic science means the science about God. And it's a widely read. There it says that one should read Bhagavad Gita very scrutinizingly with the help of a person who is a devotee of Sri Krishna, Gita Adhyana Silasya, Pranayama Parasya cha. We have seen in Gita Mahatmya. But this has to be read very scrutinizingly, but it has to be read with a person who is devotee of Krishna. And try to understand it without personally motivated interpretation. This is very important, without any personally motivated interpretations. He has to, he should be aware of his all whimsical interpretations. Personally motivated interpretation. Whatever he likes, he interpret that word to be like that. No. It has to be understood the way Arjuna has understood, the way Acharyas have given the meaning. The example of clear understanding is there in the Bhagavad Gita itself, in the way the teaching is understood by Arjuna, who heard the Gita directly from the Lord. We had discussed many times, like Arjuna, how he is understood. In the beginning, in chapter 2, he will surrender to Supreme Lord, Dharma Sammudha Cheta. But at the end, he told, oh, Nasta Moho Smritir Labdha. All my doubts are gone. So, Bhagavad Gita is a journey from confusion to clarity. So in the same way, and in chapter 10, what Arjuna is telling? Sarvan etad ritam manye yan mam badasi kesava. Whatever you told, oh Krishna, everything I accept as full truth. In the same mood, we have to understand Bhagavad Gita. If someone is fortunate enough to understand the Bhagavad Gita in that line of disciplic succession without motivated interpretation, then he surpasses all studies of Vedic wisdom and all scriptures of the world. That person who gets an opportunity to understand Bhagavad Gita is a very fortunate person. And that too in the disciplic succession, in the line of disciplic succession. Then only, if he get this opportunity to understand in line of disciplic succession in the parampara, then he is a very fortunate person. Then he can really interpret, he can understand the real import of Bhagavad Gita without any motivated interpretations. Because we had seen in the preface section, Srila Prabhupada has written that almost all the English translations available at that time was personally motivated. Author wanted to push his own idea and setting aside Krishna. But here, this translation is presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is. So that person is very fortunate enough. Then he surpasses all studies of Vedic wisdom and all scriptures of the world. So this Gita contains everything. Sarva Upanishada Gavo Dogdha Gopalanandana. It contains all the essence of Vedic wisdom and many more, which is also not contained in other scriptures. And all scriptures of the world. So whatever we see in other scriptures of the world, that all is contained in Bhagavad Gita. One will find in the Bhagavad Gita all that is contained in other scriptures, but the reader will also find things which are not to be found elsewhere. That is the specific standard of Bhagavad Gita. It is the perfect theistic science because it is directly spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. Vishnu Vakram, we had seen in Vishnu Vaktrad Vinasrita. Yaha Swam Padmanavasya Mukha Padmad Vinasrita. And Bharatamrita Sarvasyam Vishnu Vaktrad Vinasritam. This too we have seen in Gita Mahatmya. The topics discussed by Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya, as described in the Mahabharata, form the basic principle for this great philosophy. It is understood that this philosophy evolved on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, which is a sacred place of pilgrimage from the immemorial time of the Vedic age. It was spoken by the Lord when he was present personally on this planet for the guidance of mankind. Lord descended to this material world from his divine abode, from his spiritual abode, just for to guiding the mankind. So for that purpose, he is speaking Bhagavad Gita. And this Bhagavad Gita is spoken 5,000 years ago when Krishna was personally present. And before that also, from time immemorial, it is the glories of Kurukshetra is mentioned in many Vedic scriptures, in other Vedic scriptures. So here basically King Kuru has King Kuru plow this land of Kurukshetra and in a desire to cultivate religious principle, 8 virtues. So that's a different story, yeah. And then because of him, all his means from him only that dynasty is named as Kuru dynasty. The topics basically Bhagavad Gita is a two-nested conversation. Dhritarashtra is inquiring from Sanjaya, and Sanjaya is explaining he is explaining what is happening at the battlefield. So at the battlefield, there is a conversation of Arjuna and Krishna. The same is being narrated by Sanjaya to Dhritarashtra. And it comes in Bhishma Parva and in Mahabharata. In Mahabharata, there are 18 Parvas. And in one of the Parva, it's the longest Parva. In the Bhishma Parva, this is being spoken. The word Dharmakshetra, a place where religious rituals are performed, is significant because on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was present on the side of Arjuna. Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is himself present. Who is the father of religion. Dhritarashtra, the father of the Kurus, was highly doubtful about the possibility of his son's ultimate victory. In his doubt, he inquired from his secretary Sanjaya, what did they do? We begin the class by saying that, is it a redundant question? No, it's not a redundant question. This question itself meaning a lot. What did they do? That means Dhritarashtra is doubtful. they have come together to fight, but Dhritarashtra is doubtful that, oh, this Dharmakhetra will favor the Pandavas. So ultimately, there is no chance of his sons winning. So he was curious to know how it is going, kind of whether his sons will be. That thing is going in his mind, that thing is going in mind. Oh, will my son really attain victory? Because this is a Dharmakhetra, so Dharmakhetra will favor the Pandavas. That thing is going in his mind. So he was doubtful. And he was confident that both his sons and the sons of his younger brother Pandu were assembled in that field of Kurukshetra for a determined engagement of the war. Still, his inquiry is significant. Although it's very obvious, he knows that both are assembled for fighting, still his inquiry is significant. He did not want a compromise between the cousins and brothers, and he wanted to be sure of the fate of his sons on the battlefield. He is thinking, oh, will this Kurukshetra, which is a Dharmakhetra, because of his religious virtues, will it influence my sons to compromise? Will it influence my sons to compromise? But if my sons will compromise, then war will not take place. But he is very attached to the kingdom. If he will go for a compromise, for this compromising, he was also not willing to go for a compromise. He wanted that his sons to fight and win the battle, and they should reinstate as king. He wanted to see his fulfillment by seeing his son to be king, which he could not. So he was here fearful. He is fearful about this situation. Because the battle was arranged to be fought at Kurukshetra, which is mentioned elsewhere in the Veda as a place of worship, even for the denizens of heaven, Dhritarashtra became very fearful about the influence of the holy place on the outcome of the battle. And at the same time, he was very hopeful. He is thinking, oh, if Dharmakhetra will influence, let it influence Pandava to compromise, and let them not fight the battle and go to the forest. He knew very well that this would influence Arjuna and the sons of Pandu favorably, because by nature they were all virtuous. Sanjaya was a student of Vyasa, and therefore by the mercy of Vyasa, Sanjaya was able to envision the battlefield of Kurukshetra even while he was in the room of Dhritarashtra. And so Dhritarashtra asked him about the situation on the battlefield. Okay, so we have seen the various mentality of Dhritarashtra. He was desirous for the kingdom, and he was doubtful of his son's victory, and he was fearful about the possible influence of Dharmakhetra on his sons to compromise, but he doesn't want that. And if the Dharmakhetra will influence, let it influence Pandava, so he was hopeful for that. So, due to these several reasons, his inquiry is not redundant. It is having a hidden meaning. And it was also showing, he is displaying his partial nature. He is addressing his sons as Mamakaha and separating his brother's sons as Pandava. Okay, so you might wonder how come both are sitting there, Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya. How can Sanjaya will see the battle? Because Sanjaya is awarded a celestial vision by his spiritual master Vyasadeva, by which he will be able to envision the battlefield of Kurukshetra while sitting at the palace. Both the Pandavas and the sons of Dhritarashtra belong to the same family, but Dhritarashtra's mind is disclosed herein. He deliberately claimed only his sons as Kurus, and he separated the sons of Pandu from the family heritage. We have seen that. One can thus understand the specific position of Dhritarashtra in his relationship to his nephews, the sons of Pandu. As in the paddy field, the unnecessary plans are taken out, So it is expected from the very beginning of these topics that in the religious field of Kurukshetra, where the father of religion, Sri Krishna, was present, the unwanted plans like Dhritarashtra's son Duryodhan and others would be wiped out, and the thoroughly religious persons headed by Yudhishthir would be established by the Lord. Oh, such a wonderful analogy Srila Prabhupada is giving here. You know, he's telling that Kurukshetra, which is a Dharma Kshetra, it's a plowing field of Dharma. And in Dharma, this he is equating to as paddy field. In the paddy field, which is supposed to grow? The rice plant should supposed to grow. The rice plant is like Pandavas. But they are not able to grow. Why? Because the weeds are growing. The unwanted plants. The weeds are Dhritarashtra's son, Duryodhan and his party. So now here, Krishna being the father of religion, he is like farmer. What a farmer does? Farmer take out all the unwanted weeds and let the rice plant grow. So similarly, Krishna himself, who is a farmer, who is the father of religion, he is here and uprooting the unwanted plants like Dhritarashtra's sons, and will reinstate Yudhishthir and other brothers. This is the significance of the words Dharmakshetra and Kurukshetra, apart from their historical and Vedic importance. So this brings to our end to verse 1. Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you for your participation and enthusiastic hearing. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, sir. Bolo Vrindavan Hari